Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Friday, the 14th of March. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Corey Tackman. Corey, we got ourselves a little section championship Friday night here on the Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. We got a good one tonight between Henning and West Central area. I'm really excited about this game, Corey. Section 6A championship. Let me set the table for you, if that's all right here in this game. Is that all right?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to do it anyways. Henning Hornets are 26-3 on the season. They play in the Park Region Conference. They have a QRF of 109 even. That is good for 14th in Class A. They are head coached by Randy Misagatis, assistant coached by Ryan Emter, Mark Oscarson, Steve Misagatis. 26-3 overall in the year. They're 11-0 in Section 6A. They were 14-0 in the Park Region Conference. That was their third straight title. 12-0 at home, 10-0 on the road, 4-3 in neutral site games this season. They lost in the subsection game last year to Ada Borup West. They got their revenge over them, 71-69 on Wednesday night from the Hive in Perham. Kale had 26 points, Kale Misagatis, and then Logan Kostelecki had 17 points in the victory. Henning is an offense averaging about 72.7 points per game this year, and then allowing defensively 49.6. On the other end, West Central area, the Knights, 21-8 on the season. They play in the West Central Conference. Even though they have 8 losses, Corey, don't let that fool you. They have a 122.6 QRF. That is pretty darn impressive. Currently, according to the QRF, they're the 5th best team in Class A. They're 13-0 in Section 6A, 7-6 in the West Central Conference, which features team like Sox Center, who lost in their 6AA semifinal game. You have Montevideo, who won the conference this year, who won Section 3AA, and then also finishing above them in the conference was Morris Area Chicoyo, Alberta, which is another team that went on a run in that Section 3AA playoffs. They're 11-2 on their home floor, 4-0 in neutral site games, 6-6 on the road. For West Central area, they won Section 6A a year ago. They got a win in the quarterfinal round against Heritage Christian, 64-53. They then lost to Fertile Beltrami in triple overtime in that semifinal game, which was crazy. And then they lost to Nevis in the third place game after that. The last game for the Knights was a victory, and that happened in the 6A South Championship game, and that was against Benson. Benson had a halftime lead against the Knights. They were a 6 seed, getting wins over over Hancock and Border West, and they ended up taking a halftime lead against the Knights, but West Central area was able to hold off for a 61-50 win to kind of set the stage. West Central area got wins over Parker's Prairie, 77-33, Brandon Evansville, 76-45, and then, of course, over Benson. Henning to this point has gotten wins over Underwood, 67-29, Park Christian, 62-58, Ada Borup West, 71-69. We've talked about this a little bit, Corey, as it has a 5:45 pregame, 6 o'clock tip-off. Superstation, K106, 105.9 FM, streaming online at WCA and the Superstation K106 mobile app. Corey, we talked about this before we started recording, and really, the first half of this game, I think, is going to be an absolute dogfight, but it still really won't be clear, like you said, until maybe that first, section of the second half really will kind of tell us whose game this is going to swing towards.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's really cliche in the game of basketball, but those first 3 to 5 minutes of the second half really just matter a lot. If somebody's up by 6 or 7 at the half and then jumps out over the first 5 minutes and goes on a 7-0 run, and all of a sudden it's an 11 to 14 point lead, with 14 minutes to go. That these teams are here for a reason. They're really, you've created a dogfight for yourself if you're the team who's behind. There will still be plenty of time left. Of course, the game isn't over, but if this game is as much of a dogfight as we suspect it will be, who can go on that run to start the half is going to be the most important thing. I'm really fascinated by the QRF portion of this, CJ. You mentioned records. Henning's record is much better than West Central areas, but West Central's QRF is much better than that 122 is only 10 points shy of what Pequot Lake's QRF is at 132, and they're in the 7AA championship game. So that is a very real number for West Central area. And I mean, that means this is a battle for the Henning Hornets here tonight, no doubt about it. As we of course know, though, Coach Misigatis is as prepared, and those teams, Henning Hornets teams, are as prepared as anybody in the state. And boy, they've got the players. Henning's got the players to do this. So expecting some dynamic basketball, I think, here today.
Yeah, and by the way, let's backtrack a little bit. West Central area, they dipped from Section 6A. They've kind of hovered between 3AA and 6A over the last handful of years. But the last time Henning has won Section 6A, now mind you, this is Henning's fourth trip to the section title game in the last 7 seasons, which is pretty impressive for this team and this school. But the last time they won Section 6A was the 2019-2020 season. Of course, they didn't get to go to the state tournament, but Henning did win, and they got it over West Central area. So I'm not like a superstitious guy, but if you're a little stitious out there, that's probably a good omen if you're a Hornets fan, right?
Well, it just adds to the chaos of this game too, right? The last 2 times, essentially, the
last game between those 2 teams
was the COVID section championship game, and of course, the season was immediately canceled after those games were played. So, West Central area would like a little revenge, and Henning would like to hold serve. This is awesome.
It's a great game. Corey, we'll kind of wrap up our discussion with this question here. Henning wins if what happens?
They score more points than West Central area. No, this is in close games. This is how it usually works. They make a bunch of free throws, as they have the last couple of games. They will have an inbounds play or 2. That will just score them a point. Like they're going to get 4 free points a game on an inbounds play or 2. West Central area is going to at some point decide to play a zone. Henning's going to throw a lob over top of the zone and get an immediate layup. There'll be a 6-point favor. That now we're talking about 6 points, a bunch of free throws. Kale Misigatis has made roughly a million and a half free throws in his life.
They've all come up big, by the way. The last 2 games have been decided. Kale Misigatis going perfect at the free throw line.
The guy's going to have the ball in his hand at the end of games, and he's going to make free throws. They're not going to have any choice but to foul up. You know what I mean? If it's going to be close, and that's going to be and a close game, I would give the nudge to Henning just about every single time.
Yeah, and, this is interesting. Like you said, free throws are going to be important because this is a Henning team that if they don't make their free throws over the last 2 playoff games, they're going home. Over Park Christian, they were able to get a win because Misigatis made some key free throws down the stretch. They were able to hold on against Ada Borup West because of free throws made by Misigatis, but also by Logan Kostelecki getting a couple big free throws down the stretch he made 2 free throws and they won by 2. So it's just huge when you think of it in that way. I think too, there's something interesting. Henning on Wednesday night against Ada Borup West in Perham, they had a stretch in the second half. They started out the second half on like an 8-4 run, which gave them about a 10-11 point lead. And then their offense went 5 minutes of game time without scoring. And in almost any situation, in almost any playoff game, at that level especially, that could cook you. And they played such good defense that not only did they still have the lead by the time Kostelecki made back-to-back 3-pointers on back-to-back possessions to kind of get them out of that funk, but they weren't even Ada Borup West at that point didn't even sniff the lead, and that's because of how good Henning's defense has been. I mean, I was talking to Coach Misigatis before that game against Ada Borup West, and I was like, how do you feel like you match up against them? He's like, we match up pretty well. He's like, we don't feel like we need to do anything above what we normally do on defense to stop them. We don't need to get gimmicky. We don't need to kind of get out of our comfort zone. We need to just play our brand of defense and we're going to be okay. And, they end up giving up 69 points, but that's a really good Ada Porup West team with some good scores. So that doesn't really mean anything. But I think overall, it's going to be, you're just going to have to find a way to keep that offense consistent throughout the game. Because again, Misagatis has come back the last few weeks. They're still kind of going through some of the growing pains of getting him back and into the fold and who gets the ball when there's under 5 seconds on the shot clock and just things like that you kind of have to relearn. Not that it's been a huge problem for them. They found ways to win games. They're very talented, but I think it's just basically, and this maybe just is a one game that just happened to happen in the flow, but if you go a multi-minute stretch like that without scoring against a West Central area team, they might be a little more apt to make you pay. So you just have to avoid stuff like that and just play your game. And I think there's a very good chance Henning has a chance to go back to the state tournament and play in a state tournament game for the first time since they hoisted the state championship in 2019.
I've said it before, but the very best games in the state all year long are section championship games. Barring once you get to like really good state championship games, but like everyone knows the standard in a section, and Henning is acutely aware of who West Central is. West Central is acutely aware of who Henning is. They're familiar. Like the bar is. They know what the bar is within the section. What happens in section 6 is irrelevant to what happens in section 1 or 2 or pick another spot in the state. But within that section, you just know what the level is. And these section championship games are dynamite. Speaking of West Central area, CJ, the girls basketball team in the state girls basketball semifinals at the where were they at? They're at Williams Arena in the Class A quarterfinals today. Crosby-Ironton playing in the 2A semifinals, I should say, tonight. So, turns out Central Minnesota keeps good basketball rolling well into state tournament action as well.
Yeah, and by the way, Minnewaska area is playing Providence Academy. They beat Sock Center, who is another local team that's kind of in this mix. So, yeah, basketball in Central Minnesota being well represented here with the course of action and kind of some of these games throughout the day. So, there's a little bit of your girls' state basketball update as well. By the way, Corey, I was looking at if Henning does win this game, and this is the last thing we'll do on that, and then we'll move on here and talk a little Wolves. But based on the high school league schedule, so if you go to the website of the Minnesota State High School League, you can look at state tournaments, click on boys basketball, and then it has the schedule. So it doesn't have the bracket yet because that's still to be determined, but they kind of have the general schedule. And if I'm reading it right, the quarterfinal round for Class A on Thursday will be played at Target Center, which is interesting to me because then if they win, let's say Henning wins let's say they win. I'm putting a lot of carts before horses here. Let's say they get to state. Let's say they win the quarterfinal round. They would then go to play at the semifinal game at Williams Arena. And then the championship game is at Williams Arena, which I love Williams Arena being the championship game host site. I think it's a much better atmosphere because it gets louder. It gets a little more raucous, like everybody's on top of each other. But that being said, it always kind of felt weird. I understand logistics and stuff like that, but it always felt like you go to Williams Arena first and you need to win to get to the Target Center, which is like the next level. Am I making sense here?
Yes. Yeah. It's different every year, who goes where, and it's not the first time it's happened this way. I adore Williams Arena, and Henning showed out at the state tournament 6 years ago. And I mean, it was crazy how many people that they had there, and everybody was rooting for Henning who wasn't a fan of the team that Henning happened to be playing. So there was a lot of good vibes in that arena for Henning at that state tournament. But, and this is the truth, once you get to the bigger schools, the 3A and the 4A, the Target Center goes crazy for those big school games. So now put that many people. Williams Arena smaller. Now put all of Henning in Williams Arena. And and anybody else or any of these small schools, right? And now, I mean, you're talking about filling up Williams Arena to the ceiling, not just the Target Center lower bowl. I wish every game of the state tournament was played at Williams Arena, because it is a magnificently loud experience.
Maturi Pavilion is so the last state,
it's awesome.
It's a great environment too. I know Henning, the girls, when the last time they went down there, they, again, like you said, brought the whole town that wasn't going to watch the boys game at the time,
which was years ago also, by the way.
And yeah, I mean, that's a great, I remember the last time I went to watch the state boys basketball tournament as a fan, Bertha Hewitt was playing Cass Lake Bena in the quarterfinal round, but that was a year where they didn't play at Williams Arena. They instead got it on the other site, but it wasn't at the pavilion. They put a court on Mariucci, and that's where they ended up playing. So that it's
Yep. I've called games at Mariucci before too. Yeah, they just kind of, it depends on what the Wolves are doing. It depends on what's going on at the U. It depends on what's happening with hockey, and if anything. Yeah, it can kind of be all over the place. Mooch was sweet. I had fun calling games there too.
It feels a little weird because I remember being a fan. You're kind of stuck behind the. You just kind of it feels a little more like you're further away. I don't know the best way to describe it from my experience, but that was also back in 2008, which was a long time ago. But but the first year they ended up playing. Watching your high school play at the barn is just a really fun experience. Bertha Hewitt did it in the 06-07 season when they played Barnum in the quarterfinal round and lost. But that was just getting to see your team play at the barn is such a cool experience. And Williams Arena is awesome. And Williams Arena made me I didn't go to the U, but as a kid, I went into Williams Arena and I left. I'm like, I want to go to the U. This place is awesome. And then I found out I didn't have a lot of money. So instead I went to Bemidji State, which in my life ended up being much better. But it's just really fun to get to go into the barn and to do these things and to call the games on the raised floor and just to be there in that environment. So anyway, hopefully Henning can get there, and that's awesome. And congratulations to those girls basketball teams that are down there and doing that stuff. And again, no disrespect to the Gangelhoff Center at Concordia, but it does take a step down there when you go to a field house that has a basketball court on it from Williams Arena. But it's just interesting that the Target Center, I understand logistically, but it always just felt like you go to the college level and then the semifinals and the championship, that's at the pro arena. And it kind of felt like there were levels to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right, we got a lot of stuff to talk about with the Minnesota Timberwolves coming up in just a second. But before we do that, I want to remind you about the good folks at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. They have all new party rooms, and they are wanting to celebrate in style with the ultimate birthday party giveaway. They're meant to be celebrated, and a party at the FunZone Arcade, of course, Corey, is the ultimate celebration. Their birthday party giveaway will award one lucky winner a FunZone Arcade party package valued at $500. It includes a FunZone Arcade birthday party at the FunZone Arcade location of your choice, plus $150 in FunZone cards, which is awesome. Go to their Facebook page, or heck, if you're watching on YouTube, you can do it right now. Scan the QR code that is on your screen and submit your entry by the end of the month for your chance to win and get this party giveaway at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. Corey, I know you've done some birthday parties or two at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, and rave reviews, right?
Rave reviews, the Ranch and FunZone Arcade, just waiting for you. Get yourself entered today.
At the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. And by the way, they got a lot of great pizza too, along with all the great stuff going on in the FunZone Arcade. Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, proud sponsors of the Morning Sports Desk. All right, Corey, as we wrap things up on a Friday, no Mount Rushmore today just because we didn't have a lot of time to plan because we're getting ready for this Henning game that's going to be so awesome today that I'm ready for. But we do have Minnesota Timberwolves to talk about. They're going for their 7th win in a row, which would tie a season high. And of course, the last time the Wolves won 6 or more games was a year ago, early in kind of that November, December stretch of last season where we realized this team is going to be really good. And the way the Timberwolves are playing, I know you didn't have a chance. You were driving home from Duluth on Wednesday night. You didn't have a chance to watch the Wolves, but they absolutely dismantled the Nuggets. Me and Zeke talked about it yesterday. it really feels like this team is coming into their own. Julius Randle has learned how to pass and pass effectively. So he's a good scorer, and now he's not a black hole on offense. They've won their last 11 games with Julius Randle in the lineup, which is crazy to think about. And on top of that, Dante DiVincenzo's back. He provides great defense. His three-point shots coming on. Jaden McDaniels playing some of the best basketball of his career. Ant is kind of just doing Ant things, but like he's not required to like transcend the level of talent of this team, Corey, because there's a lot of talent on this team, and no team in the West should scare the Wolves. And in fact, the Wolves should scare a lot of teams in the West.
Yeah, I mean, it's to that time now where everyone's back off their injuries. Everyone is back healthy. You spent an entire season working together and getting to know each other. I mean, remember, we're talking about a team that had pretty good rapport, as weird as they could have been at times a season ago. It was a group of guys who played together for a long, long time. And when you lose a guy like Cat and completely disrupt kind of a stalwart in the organization for the previous half decade plus, it's just going to take a while to learn who each other, who your teammates are. And it seems like that has been the case. So it's not just us talking about it. National media is talking about it. They're playing with a little different energy again. Like they like each other, like they know where they're going to be on the floor. That helps. You talked about Julius Randle's passing. He is a good playmaker. He's always been a good playmaker. And that is like peak Julius Randle is scoring and playmaking for somebody else. And it's clear that at the beginning of the season, he just didn't have a rapport with his teammates, and he has it now. And it's pretty good timing. You've talked about it before. We've talked about it before. But their schedule's really easy the rest of the way. It's the easiest of everybody who's still in the mix in the West, and they're playing their best basketball right now. This is as good as it gets for the Timberwolves. And I'm going to tell you this right now. My phone's going to die. So whatever you have to say when my phone checks out, I'm done.
One last thing here with the Wolves. Let's check out the Western Conference standings here quickly. So the Wolves right now have a half game below the 6th seed. You want to get out of the play-in of the 7 through 10 spots. Right now, you're the 7, which is the best play-in spot to be in, but still, you want to try and pass Golden State, heck, maybe even pass the Rockets. Heck, if things work out in your favor, maybe snag that 4 seed and get a home playoff series. But again, you got to figure things out. The Wolves are a half game behind the Warriors, 3.5 behind the Rockets and the Lakers, 4.5 behind the Nuggets and the Grizzlies, respectively. Look at the Wolves' remaining schedule. Like you said, they have 15 games to go, and they have one of the easiest remaining schedules in the NBA. The Pistons, they're a nice story. The Wolves are better than them. They're going to get a win they play, looking at their schedule here. I don't know why it took me back to that one. They play the Magic tonight, who have a below 500 record. Jazz, you should beat the Jazz. You have 5 straight home games here in this stretch. Pacers, you should beat the Pacers. Pelicans, back-to-back at home. You should win both of those games. You then play the Pacers again. You play the Suns again, who you've had the better of, really, since over the last 12 months. Then again, the Pistons. You then play the Nuggets for one final time. That's a toughie. The Nets, not a toughie. 76ers, not a toughie. Then Bucks, Grizzlies. Those two are toughies. And then Nets and Jazz to end the season. You have 3 games, maybe 4 the rest of the season that are like, this is going to be a dogfight kind of game. And for them, I think this is just opening up a path to, at the very least, snag the 6th seed, get out of the play-in, and then if the season ended today, let's say the Wolves got the 6th seed, it'd be a 3-6 matchup with the Denver Nuggets, a team that the Wolves match up really well against.
Not only do they match up really well against, they really like playing. It's the weird quirk about this Timberwolves team. We've talked about it negatively at times during the season, how they really don't always get up for everybody. But you know who they do get up and ready to play? Denver every single time. Oklahoma City every single time. They match up well with Oklahoma City. Boston every single time. And obviously you're not going to run into Boston until it's the most important series of the entire season. But they are not, like you said, they are not afraid of anybody. They don't care. They just don't care. The problem will be is when they've had easy games in the regular season, they have not gotten ready for those games.
They had some bad luck.
So there's under 20 games left in the year, whatever. You just went through the schedule. You mentioned a lot of easy games. Well, they've had a lot of bad losses to teams that they shouldn't lose to. So this is some level of professionalism now that we've talked about many, many times with the Timberwolves. Can they prepare themselves to play these seemingly easier opponents? Like the 3 seeds in play for them. Like there's no reason by the time this is all said and done, who's in front of them? Golden State's in front of them. The Lakers are in front of them. Well, LeBron is out with a groin injury for a couple of weeks. The Lakers have one of the hardest schedules over the final 20 games of the season. So like the Lakers might drop a little bit here. The Timberwolves have an opportunity to move up in the world. And of course, we just constantly will root against Jimmy Butler. I love Steph and Golden State, but I'm going to root against Jimmy Butler for the rest of my life.
Jimmy and Draymond on the same team, pretty easy to root against.
And that's in like moving up to this 3 seed or moving up a couple spots to the 4 or the 3 seed. That should be their goal. And they have an opportunity to do it here and kind of seize the moment. And I hope they do, because watching them have fun together and play not selfish basketball and slow basketball and sometimes lazy basketball that they can fall into, they're miserable. But when that ball is moving and guys are hitting shots and they're finding the open guys and Naz Reid is doing Naz Reid things, they're a really good basketball team.
A lot of good things happening. They're really fun to watch, and they're finding that defensive identity, which is just which has been something that they've been looking for a long time. So the fact that they're getting that back as well has been really nice. Of course, it helps when Rudy and DiVincenzo get healthy. That helps kind of add to your identity. But yeah, a lot of good stuff happening with the Wolves, and heck, why not go for 7?
I think they're top 10 in offensive and defensive rating, and it might even be like top 6 right now in both.
And it's the first time they've done that since the 03-04 Wolves team.
That team was good, turns out. Oh, by the way, rest in peace, Oliver Miller, who was on that 03-04 team. And do you remember him? You probably don't remember Oliver Miller.
I remember the stories, but not actually watching him play.
Right.
Yeah. That'll do it. This has been the Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. See you Monday.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.